an interesting evening of contemplation and a little bit of research here. It was actually Susan, one of our American OnX followers, who got up on stage on X today and brought up the F-35, saying, I thought that deal was canceled with the F-35 procurement in Canada. And the answer is no, it's not. In fact, Canada committed to 16 of these, with another 14 disclosed, which I went and looked at. Canada's started making payments for the first order of 16, and then an additional 14 to come thereafter. So I go on the US government website to see how that's going, and sure enough, that's logged there. But what's interesting is the F-35s go to Fort Luke in Arizona, and that happens here at the end of 2026, where then Canada must send its Canadian pilots for training, and then in 2028, after upgrades that are to be delivered to Canada, aka Cold Lake, Alberta, which I knew that previously from the government website. I just didn't realize the deliveries are 2 years out. Now, what's interesting about all this that no one's talking about, and what's got me thinking now, especially with China, Canada, where Canada's going with China, is the reason Carney's only committed to 16 with 14 others and talking about a mixed fleet, that every Canadian Air Force personnel of rank and of understanding will tell you it's not good to mix fleets. It makes no sense at all. And that Canada should stick with one or the other, not do any. There is no expert, Air Force expert, military personnel to tell you otherwise. They say that is a very, very bad idea, creates a lot of problems, extra hoops, lots of costs. But then it dawned on me, if you're Mark Carney and you love China, as he's published extensively since 2011, this guy has committed to China. That's the way. That's where Canada has to go. That's his life mission as Central Bank of Canada, a Central Bank of London, UK, and then now Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. And then it clued in on me. He's changed immigration to bring in all these Chinese specialists, these pilots being trained in Alberta, where, if you didn't know, in Canada, Cold Lake Base, which I trained at in my youth, I did survival training there. I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I could name some people who actually did get through to the F-16s, but I won't. Childhood friends. I don't have permission. But we all went through that. We went through that training. We made it. I didn't get into the jets. I didn't make it that long into it, but I did all kinds of other aircraft and other areas. But I can tell you what makes sense to me. The reason why Mark Carney would only want 16 aircraft with maybe another 14 is for China. And now that makes sense. In a breakdown reverse engineering scenario where Mark Carney makes a deal where these Cold Lake assets would sit, and the Chinese would come in and analyze, use AI, the automotive deal, bringing AI in, the internet and marketing of Canadians' data, which, after what happened with Huawei, why would you ever want to do that unless your plan really was to have this mixed fleet where these Gripens would be absolutely the Air Force, so to speak, for Canada, but these F-35s would be specific for China and absolute reverse engineering. That completely now makes sense to me. And that I could see Mark Carney have, after having all these deals with Beijing, open border policy, free travel for any Canadian, now defense procurement and foreign specialists all taking over the sovereignty of Canada's military, even in recruitment of specialized troops, officers, skill sets in defense from, again, foreign countries. It would make sense that that's what he's doing, that he's actually trying to set the stage for China over USA to defeat USA in a long game. That's what makes sense absolutely to me. And now when we look at this, it makes sense to these timelines that Trump's rolled out. It makes sense to me what the U.S. ambassador has said, how timelines have changed. Now Canadians must come to Arlington base to get trained there. Oh, the jets won't be completely outfitted till 2028. They're going through to see how far the Canadian government's going to go and see if they're going to break on the 88 deal, because really they only want enough jets for reverse engineering with their best friends China. Honestly, folks, that's what that looks like to me. And I can guarantee you, when you start to look at the United States of America, that's exactly what they see. It's why they're in a tiff. It's why Donald J. Trump has said, as the ambassador to Canada said, if you don't buy the entire fleet, meaning making that your entire Canadian fleet, we're going to have to command the airspace in Canada. And folks, that means they're going to be making sure there are no CPC in Canada, in and around those spaces, what have you. And I think the cat's out of the bag. And I think what we're all going to see is Mark Carney going through the emotions, blowing all your and my money. In fact, it's not even money we have. It's money being debt loaded against us with the United States. And then because Canada is developing a new immigration program that mimics exactly what happened with Hungary, and the Russians over those same assets, ally assets, exposed to, and USA had to remove those planes. They'd say, sorry, we can't allow you, even as a NATO member, to have our equipment because you're putting it at risk. And Mark Carney is not only setting the table for that, he's made the meal for that. It makes absolute sense to me, so that Mark Carney has something in his bag down the road when Canadians get real mad, and then all of a sudden it looks like USA just welched on the F-35s. They're not delivering them. They've taken all your money when they ordered and had those planes built. But then Canada doesn't complete the whole order, meaning Canada has no intentions of making that any kind of major commitment to their fleet. And the only reason to do that would to be selling that off to a bigger foreign power for the reverse engineering capabilities to actually neutralize the F-35. That makes absolute sense. It's all explanation of our media, the narratives, this pitter patter around. Well, we committed to the whole thing, but now we're just buying this many. Oh, and we want this many for over here. And it's all because they're not going to make it their entire fleet. It's because they're giving China access to USA's military highly advanced equipment. When you read everything Mark Carney's ever written about China in Canada since 2011, he is 10 times the Chinese lover Justin Trudeau's ever been published as being or saying. I admire China's pure dictatorship, all of that. This is Mark Carney, who really does love China, loves all of it, wants to merge with that economy, wants to push all of us into that. That's how he views Canadians, that you're less, you don't deserve any rights, that he is an omnipotent, privileged person, divine, in fact. He's smarter than everybody, and that system works great to constrict Canadians. And absolutely, he has a hate on for America. He wants to destroy America. And I believe that that's where we are with the government of Canada today, with both liberals and conservatives. Any way to save their crown. Mark my words, it's a long way out. It's near the end of the Trump administration, his 4 years. But you watch, those planes paid for, if they don't do the full 88, meaning the entire Canadian fleet, there won't be any at all. And then Canadians will be left again with, oh, look at big bad old orange man, America bad, Canada good, when you all yourselves know today that Canada is now doing aggressive immigration programs found in Alberta for the last 14 years that bring in specialized foreign pilots, commercial and military, as well as engineers, aerospace, all of it, AI, computer, networking, all of it. Why? Why would you ever, any country in the world, open up their military to any foreign nation if they're claiming that they're doing it for their own sovereignty? How do you get sovereignty by opening up those positions in your national security to foreign persons? And you call that preferred immigration? That's the best foot forward. I think not, folks. I think we have put this baby to bed, and I think we're all just going through the emotions of where America's going and what they're going to have to do with Canada. So God bless everybody. This is more for Susan on X, and I guess I'll have to tag Jonathan Bahai in this, because this should really go to Susan, and Americans should really wake up to this, because why wouldn't Canada commit to its original deal of all 88? Why the rigmarole? Why the changes in immigration, in military, in specialized aeronautics, all of it? Why? In engineering, all of it. Unless, of course, they have a plan for those F35s that spell disaster for USA. And I don't think anyone logically looking at it with common sense would see this any other way. And I think the Trump administration sees it just fine. And that's why these years of wait and then we'll deliver. First, you commit to all this, get it paid for, order it all up, pay for it. Ensure that's your entire fleet. Ensure that's for Canadian pilots, because they come to Arizona, Fort Luke, that air base, to get all their training before those fleets can come to Cold Lake and then onward to Quebec for a smaller portion. But Cold Lake is supposed to take the bulk of those as the replacement Air Force. And that's what it says to me. And that makes sense. And Mark Carney's moves on immigration, what Alberta's set up, especially up north, in the vicinity of that base, I've been to it. I've worked on it. I've worked on it in the oil field. I've been out to the bombing range. I've been out to the hangars. Again, I did Arctic survival training there in my youth. So I know what it is. And that is Canada's air base absolute. And in the vicinity of all these Chinese, no, they're just too close. Way, way too close. It's been staged that way. It's their back door into the American military complex, especially America's Air Force, the most mighty Air Force in the entire world. It's scary to talk about these things, but now it's all coming into focus. Trump is making more and more sense all the time. So is the ambassador and what they have said. They're testing Canada. They're going to see how far Canada would go with this, and seeing how far Canada thinks they're so much smarter than the Americans, and that they're going to really think that low of the Americans, that they're that stupid. And how media can't look at this logically is beyond me, which only tells me one thing: the Canadian media is completely corrupted, completely owned by the government. Absolute. There is no path forward for everyday Canadians anymore. You're in a regime who has absolute command of the media. Absolutely and entirely. We're gone. And I think USA knows it. And it won't be very long before the end of the Trump administration that the cat's out of the bag. Canada is officially an enemy of the United States of America. I am seeing it day after day, more and more, beyond what I've ever even contemplated or thought was a reality of my fellow Canadians. But as we sit here today, this is what I see all around me in a majority. And it's terrifying that I thought even a year ago, if we just go down this road, Canadians will wake up. My fellow Canadians, they'll wake up. We'll move hundreds of thousands. And then, within a few years, it'll be millions. And here we are, barely have moved any in really critical stages of crazy government. And Canadians just go, no, my government, I love my government, I trust my government, I go blindly forward. America bad, China good, everything's going to be okay. And that's terrifying to see in adult minds. So, that's my video, folks. You can all look at it yourself. I suggest you go on the Canadian Government of Canada website for national defense. You'll find the same in the United States of America. You can look up the F-35 contracts on both sides and the agreements, like I just did over the last few hours. Go through it entirely. You'll find Canada's first purchase on both sides of it. And then you see on the U.S. side, well, but first you got to come to Luke Base. You got to be trained in Arizona. And then we're going to retrofit everything. And the first deliveries come at the end of, near the end of Donald Trump's presidency. And you know what I think? I don't think those planes are ever going to make it. I'm pretty sure Mark Carney has made sure of that. He's treating Americans as stupid as he believes and knows his subjects to be, that they're just inferiors to his superiority, and that he can say anything and Americans will believe it, and they don't. That's my video. Thanks, everybody. Look into it yourself. Find out the truth. Yes, Canada's bought 16. They've started their second round of 14. Not going for the 88. It's still open. And that is the alarm bell right there. And there's no way you'd want any kind of mixed fleet. None of this makes sense, except for the fact old Mark Carney and his Chinese allies have a plan. They're going to pull a fast one on the United States and the old Trump administration. And at the same time, if it all falls apart, go see, USA ripped you off, USA screwed you over, when really you can go research what happened with Hungary and Russia and those F-35s and how fast USA had to pull the pin. Because there's no way they're going to let any of those that they are in, not going to say enemies, but not in good standing with, that they trust them as their fierce competitors in this world, and they would never allow them or anybody, it doesn't matter them or anybody, but those are their major military competitors, their power on this earth equal or superior in some ways to the United States, and they won't give up any of their edges, especially technological, procured, homemade edges they have in technology and advancement in military equipment, and they won't turn that over for nothing. And why should they? Only foolish countries like Canada do stuff like that. And with what happened with Nortel to Huawei, and then to look at this purchase, this partial purchase, and all of a sudden this new open immigration program, this new buddy system with China, open visas, and we'll bring all these Chinese specialists right across Canada now, of course, into Alberta too, who's been doing it the longest. They'll get a hold of those F-35s. They'll, even if it's not directly, they'll do it through AI, through their automotive cars coming in here to Canada. And I think that's what that 45,000 is really for. Because what Canadian right now is begging for Chinese EVs? Who is? Who's begging? Which Canadians are begging to have China marketing and internet access over all of our data in Canada? Raise your hand if that's you. It's not me. Mark Carney and his Liberals and Conservatives not making us think about it. In fact, all the Conservative premiers going, hip, hip, hooray. First, Doug Ford had a problem. Then he doesn't. Then he says this is dangerous. Then he says it isn't. Talks to Mark Carney and they work out a financial deal and Doug Ford's all on board. It's all crazy and cockamamie, folks. You can't flip, flop to this extreme unless you're doing something nefarious. You can't 1 week lie about something, then the next week act like you never said the first thing and, oh no, now I'm all for it. And you keep swinging the media into your corner back and forth. Like, what kind of adult Canadian doesn't look at the tail of the tape and go, this guy said this 3 weeks ago, now today he says this. He said this 6 months ago, now he says this today. He said that a year ago, now he says this today. The extreme swings are so erratic, so frequent now, so cockamamie, and it's left, right, doesn't matter. They're all on the same page. It's all nefarious. And like I said, how Canadians don't see this is beyond me. It's clear that you're dealing with serious people with a compulsive personality to lie. Obviously, sociopaths, narcissists. When you start looking this stuff up, when somebody flips their position so easily and then denies all the facts they rolled out a month ago, and then the next month they're on a whole different side of the equation, those are alarm bells, folks. Those are, hey, what kind of leader in charge of my province or my country says this year, and now this year everything is all erased and fine and dandy, and Canadians go along with that. I know in life, when you deal with people like that, you know that they're not trustworthy, they're not bondable. You wouldn't have a business deal with them. If the person says, hey, don't buy those Chinese cars, that's a terrible idea, this is dangerous, and then the next week they're working in a Chinese car lot selling cars. And they're like, hey, buy this car. And you're like, don't you remember a month ago you told me not to do that. But now you're working here and you're selling the cars. You're telling me it's a good idea. Now you were wrong. None of us would believe that person. None of us would. But yet a politician does that very same thing. The media says no big deal. Canadians say elbows up. This is great. It's lunatic. It's mental illness of the highest kind. So many Canadians should be woken up today. Not just tens of thousands or a few 100,000. It should be millions of Canadians, especially folks over the age of 35. How can you not rationally see this, not rationally comprehend how vastly different these people are talking than just a year ago and several years of narratives? And all of a sudden today we wipe it away. Oh no, it's okay. Or what one said a year ago in real nefarious action, and then today they're acting like, oh, none of that matters, but this narrative's better. We'll use up all your resources. This is better. We're going to have immigration from China. This is way better. Huh? You said it wasn't a good idea to go there. Now you're telling people to go there. It's a beautiful place. Something's very wrong with Canadians today, and it scares me. It really does. Over this week and what I've seen and the reaction of Canadians on social media, on polling, on news, on just life and walk around, this terrifies me, the country I'm in today. It scares me what people think. Anyways, that's my video. God bless everybody. Share. Get it out there. Bye now.